Okay, can you see my
Yeah.
from beginning? Okay, can everyone see zodiacs and some ice?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, this is, I'm so grateful that I'm here today because this is the first time that I'm meeting in a group of individuals where we're not together. So this means a lot, seeing all of your faces, because it is important to be together, but maybe we can do that on the other side of all of this. So I'm thrilled to share with you some of my personal experiences about a trip I had to Greenland. And so before I get started, though, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself because Sheila and I have been working well together over well over 3.5 years, but she's worked with Quark for quite a long time, knowing so much about adventure travel, and that's where Sheila's passion lies. So I've had the privilege of working very closely with Sheila over the past few years, but I started with Quark Expeditions back in 2008, almost 12 years ago, and I have what I like to call polar fever. I really do enjoy traveling to the polar regions. I didn't even know you could go to the polar regions when I got this job. Someone called me and said, you know that movie March of the Penguins? And I said, yes. And they said, well, this company goes to Antarctica to see the emperor penguins. And I thought, you can travel to these regions? I thought it was just left for, BBC film crews and scientists. So I've had quite a few expeditions under my belt. But Quark has been around for over 30 years, almost 30 years. We only do polar travel, so the Arctic and Antarctica. But I'm so thrilled that Sheila really wanted me to focus on Greenland because not many people have had it on their radar. Have any of you thought about Greenland as a destination?
Been there.
You've been there. Kate? Was that Kate that's been there?
Laura.
Okay, Laura, yay. Because a lot of people have Iceland on their radar, which is wonderful. Iceland's beautiful. But if people are thinking of going to Iceland, Greenland's just a hop, skip, and a jump away. So when I did my Greenland trip, I actually crossed the body of water between Iceland and Greenland, which is the Denmark Strait. So I did make that crossing. It's about a day crossing. But my particular trip, I was by the east portion of Greenland. So the longest fjord system in the world is Scoresby Fjord. So I stuck more to the east side of the peninsula, or the east side of the island. So where you see Itacormorets and Ella Islands, I was around that area. But now I have to go back and go to the west portion of Greenland because it's just so different. Then each part of Greenland is so different. So Greenland was never on my list. Like some of you, I saw some of you not shaking your heads. No, Greenland isn't for me, or I haven't thought about going there. And it's just so beautiful. It really is a gorgeous place, and it is indeed the largest island on the planet. So we have had people say nature is still champion in this land, in Greenland, but beyond its natural richness, there's also a focus on the history of inhabitants and their culture. And so for me, I was really happy to go into some community visits as well. But just to give you a bit of an idea of a full map of Greenland, that Scoresby Fjord on the east side, that's the area that I'll talk a little bit about from my personal experience, but then I'll share some photos from the west portion of Greenland as well. Now, I know how many of you are into wildlife, that really enjoy wildlife? Yeah. I'm a huge wildlife enthusiast too, but what I always forget to mention are the ice formations in these regions, which are so stunning. So this is from the west portion of Greenland in Disco Bay. This just gives you an idea of the magnitude of beautiful ice that I love witnessing and hearing. And so we're safe in the zodiacs at a safe distance. This wasn't on a trip that I went on because it was from the west portion of Greenland. But ice is just so beautiful and so magical that this is a big draw of all areas of Greenland. There are ice formations of every shape and size in Greenland, large, small. I really do feel like they're pieces of art that we'll never see again, because each one is different and unique.
Just an incredible set of pictures, video there.
So that's just an example of how beautiful the ice formations are in these regions. Because I know a lot of people like myself, I love going and seeking wildlife, which is definitely a part of a Greenland trip. But I really enjoyed the ice. I never get sick of ice. I find it so peaceful and so magical. And then of course, instances like that iceberg we saw breaking apart and collapsing, there are moments of grandeur with ice as well. So I personally, like, this is in Scoresby Sun Fjord, these little iceberg alleys here. And I just love maneuvering around the ice and seeing ice of every imaginable size. I love hiking. So I loved the amount of hiking I could do in Greenland. I went in September and I loved some long hikes or some contemplative walks. But on one particular long walk that I did, we were told by our expedition team leader to be very, very quiet because we were coming over a hill and there were a team of muskoxen. And I had never seen a muskoxen in all my life. I don't even think I had seen a picture of one. And we just sat there over this ridge and it was such an incredible opportunity. And does anyone know what creature and animal the muskoxen is related to? Have you thought about that at all?
Looks like
it's
a
actually,
bison.
yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it was like a bison as well. That's exactly what our marine biologist asked me. And it's actually related to the sheep.
Really?
The sheep family. And I guess when you kind of look closer in the horns, and I guess I could kind of see the male resemblance of a male sheep or a ram maybe, but yeah, they're related to the sheep family. And of course, their wool is so soft. I remember even going to Banff, and I think in the gift shop at the Banff Fairmont Hotel there, I was just walking around. And they even sell like nice warm hats and the bands for our ears in the winter. It's just such soft wool. So maybe be on the lookout for some muskoxen hats and scarves because it's very soft, so very soft wool. But there's so many places in Greenland, and they're also in our Canadian high Arctic as well. So muskoxen are also found there. But that is one of the beauties of Greenland is really trying to find the wildlife rather than Antarctica, which Kathleen, you might have experienced. There's wildlife everywhere. In Antarctica, there's penguins everywhere. So in the Arctic, it's a little bit harder to find the wildlife. But when we do, it's so exhilarating. It's so exciting. I have to be quiet because I want to be loud and go, oh my gosh, there's something. So with my trip too, then this is with my little point and shoot camera. I'm not a photographer by any means, but the odd time I do take out my camera. Because I think, I don't know about any of you, but sometimes I think I can try and take too many pictures and then I'm not really focused on the experience. And I'm not a photographer on the best of days anyway, so I really try and enjoy my experience. But on one particular excursion, our expedition team member, our biologist said, let's just sit on some rocks, take 20 minutes in silence just to really experience where we are. Because I just love being in nature and solitude and the quietness. And sure enough, this little Arctic fox came out of a den and he ran right across. There were about 14 of us just kind of in silence scattered around. And because it was so silent, the fox wasn't scared to come out. So it was just such one of the most memorable moments because they are so hard to see, one, because they camouflage so well, but two, they rarely come out because they know that they're hunted, especially by other creatures. And they're going to find for their pups, they usually are going to find like eggs from birds that are around and such. So we were able to see this Arctic fox, which was such a great memory for me. But Kathleen, I don't know if you did this, and maybe Sheila, you've maybe done this on some of your expeditions, but I even did the polar plunge. I really wasn't going to do it, but there were quite a few people in Hare Fjord in Greenland that decided to do it. So I thought at the last minute, I got the courage, because cold pools are in spas now. Like I was in a spa back in January, and it was interesting to see the hot pools and then the cold pools. So I thought, okay, well, I jumped in the polar waters. So it was about -1 degrees Celsius at the time in the salt water. So it was quite an experience. It was really fun, and people of all ages were doing it. Everyone from like 18 to there was an 84-year-old. So it was just such a fun memory for me. So I really love that.
Do you offer that on all your polar expeditions? The opportunity to do that if you choose?
Yeah, we do, Sheila. We get everyone gets the opportunity. We usually put it on the end of each trip, but sometimes if the weather is beautiful and bright blue skies and no wind, we take opportunities to do that then. So yes, everyone gets offered. Not everyone has to do it. People have just as much fun watching from the deck of the ship than getting entertained. So that was very memorable for me.
So we have there are a couple of others who might be joining late, but I know there are 2 people on that have traveled with you before. Kathleen, did you do the polar jump?
I watched.
You watched.
And how about you, Laura? Did you do the dip?
No, I watched.
Both Laura and Kathleen went to Antarctica with you. Laura did the Fly the Drake, and Kathleen, did you do Fly the Drake, or did you do the Crossing the Circle? Do you remember?
I don't remember those titles. I know we did it was a 10-day trip with Crossing the Drake Passage.
Oh, you did cross Drake. Okay.
Nice. So you did the Drake shake.
Laura got her jacket there.
I was just going to say about cold water. I'm a longtime kayaker, and I also swim open water. And I love cold water. It's like my favorite. But when you're jumping in, you have to be really careful of the gas reflex.
Yeah.
You like to jump in and your head go underwater. Some people might gasp. So that's something you have to be really careful of.
Definitely a pointer if anyone wants to.
I'd be more inclined to slip in the water so my head didn't go under, so that if I gasped, my head wouldn't be underwater when I gasped.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that you said, is that Karen?
Yes.
Oh, Karen, it's so interesting that you say that, because for Antarctica, there sometimes we do the beach, so you can run in from the beach. So that's a really good point. So you're not gasping, so you can kind of go at your own pace and go slowly into the cold waters to do the polar plunge. So that's a really good point.
Oh, Cara,
Laura's
Nancy
got her jacket, I see.
Yeah, that's Laura.
It's a great jacket. It's good for when it's cold and it's raining, and it's great for Canadian weather.
Especially with the zip-in liner. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nan just sent a message that she went with Quark crossing the circle, and she did the polar dip at the circle. Well done.
Oh, nice. At the circle, oh, that's great. That's amazing. And so what's really neat about the Arctic, which is different from the Antarctic trips. Oh, yay, look at that. That is fantastic. Oh my gosh. Is it a long sleeve shirt?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. And the little penguins on it. Oh my gosh, I love it. Laura, thanks for bringing your memorabilia. I love it. Actually, hold it up. I might take a picture of that. I haven't seen that one in the Polar Boutique in a while.
Okay. I don't know. Can you see it?
Yep. Oh, fun. That's great. Oh,
but they put the thing on the back, and with long hair, you don't see it. It was
right.
It was made by a man, I think, so he architected it. Nobody with long hair would do that.
Oh, that's so funny.
And then
Well,
there's
that's the thing too. Oh, and then you got another one too. Let's see that one. Oh, fun.
Mm.
And that's the thing with expedition travel too. I'm sure probably some of you might think expedition, might be not for me. It's too active or too out of the box. And what's really neat is I really could still go at my own pace with these trips. You know, there was an afternoon with my aunt, and she didn't get off the ship that afternoon, and she loved staying, having a cup of tea, enjoying the ice formations from the comfort of the vessel. So it really can be as active or as leisure as you want your trip to be. Oh my gosh, look at those two little penguins. I love it.
That's the same
That's
shirt.
so cute, Laura.
That's the Quark one.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, I love it. But what I really loved about Greenland is going to the community visits. Like I went into Itakormarit, and you could walk around at your own pace. We got a map. And
Can you say that again, please?
Itakormarit. Itakormarit.
Dormant.
And it's usually a start of the trip because it's East Greenland's most northerly community. So on the East Greenland. So I was able to I bought some beaded earrings from a local artist and a little Christmas tree ornament that I bought with some sealskin. So I really enjoyed going to these communities and seeing how some of the children were living or live and going to the museums, and there was even a little church there. So I really enjoyed exploring Itakormarit when I was there. And oh, there you go, Laura's got that.
That's what I bought when I was
You
there.
got that in green. Okay, isn't the beaded work beautiful?
Yeah.
And is that a necklace?
Yeah.
That is beautiful. Yeah, the beaded work is just gorgeous. And stonework too, like our Canadian High Arctic, there's stonework. But that's what really is different from the Arctic than Antarctica is people have been inhabiting the Arctic for over 3,500 years. Like people have been living there, whereas Antarctica, the winters have been too cold for people to actually live there. So of course now there's, research stations and things like that. But it's kind of like, has anyone been on an African safari or gone to Africa?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of what I loved about going to Kenya. I went to Kenya and I didn't really think the community visits and the locals would be a highlight. And it was. And just like Greenland, wasn't really necessarily going for the cultural aspect, but there is such a culture and such beautiful people in Greenland. So
Yeah,
I really enjoyed
definitely.
that. But this is why I have to go back to the west portion. Because Laura, where did you go in Greenland?
The very southeastern little island corner.
Oh, amazing.
I did a flyover from Iceland.
Ah, that's amazing. Because the west and the south of Greenland is so different from the east. So you also have the UNESCO World Heritage Site on the west portion of Greenland. So fjords and glaciers and archaeological sites as well. I love seeing on the east side as well, Thule sites, so Thule remains. The soil is so hard in Greenland because it's so cold that the Thule people had a hard time burying their dead. And so I was able to approach a Thule grave site, and you could actually literally crouch down and see the bones and the remains because they had piled rocks all around to keep and that's how they actually ended up burying their passing people. So it's so neat to see archaeological sites as well. And in the south of Greenland, Laura, I don't know if you saw this in Greenland, but there was a museum and it had mummified bodies in it. So Greenland also, I thought mummified bodies were only in Egypt, but no, they're in Greenland too. So just, again, beautiful ice formations, beautiful landscapes. But one thing I did see 3 nights in a row on my trip were the Greenland Northern Lights. So in September, when I went, the sun was setting around 10 p.m. at night, and we'd go to bed, and then our expedition leader woke us up at around 1 or 2 in the morning. It was like, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. The Northern Lights are putting on an amazing show. I encourage you to come out on deck. Well, I was so excited because I hadn't seen the Northern Lights before that I ran out on deck, threw my parka on, like Laura's, and ran out on deck, and I forgot I was in my pajamas. So I had my fleece pajama bottoms on that have wine glasses all over them, but I didn't care. I wanted to see the Northern Lights. So it was really fun to see that. I had a 10-night trip, and 4 nights I saw them. By the 5th night, I stopped waking up in the middle of the night because I wanted to get up for the early morning Zodiac cruise, and I was getting a little tired. So I don't usually like missing a thing, but sometimes on the expeditions, it gets a little, there's always something to see and always something to discover. So we do have a couple of great Greenland itineraries for 2021. So 14 days, that begins and ends in Reykjavik. So like you, Laura, flying over from Iceland, we embark and disembark in Kangerlussuaq. So we'll fly over to Greenland, and that's covering mostly the western portion and the south of Greenland. But there's also a 9 nights on, well, 8 nights on the ship and a 10-day trip. So if someone doesn't want to go for a very long time, there are also shorter itineraries. And this one-of-a-kind voyage too will not only immerse yourself in the majestic landscape of the world's 2nd largest ice mass, the Greenland ice sheet, but we have helicopters on the ship that does this. So if you don't want to go for a big hike on the ice sheet, you can do some helicopter aerial sightseeing tours, which are all included, seeing the beautiful ice sheet from the air. And then we also have Greenland day camps. So if you want to go for the day or stay overnight, our guides will take you, and some local Greenland guides as well. And you can even camp out for people who are that adventurous. So lots to see and do in Greenland. But like Kathleen and Laura, did you do any of our additional activities? Because we do have things like Zodiac cruising, hiking, photography programs, but there are paddling excursions. So kayaking programs, people love paddling in these polar regions.
I did the camping.
You did the camping in Antarctica. Yeah. Because there's so much to do without it being included. And when I went with my aunt, I loved just being in the Zodiacs with her, or having a little contemplative walk, or sitting on a rock, like when the Arctic fox came out, just sitting and observing where we are. But if you are traveling with someone who's active, or yourself, if you do like kayaking, that's always a fun thing too. And with our new ship that's coming out, the Ultramarine, we've got some great helicopter excursions that are beyond just the hiking and sightseeing, like biking and things like that. So lots of fun excursions, but I do believe it's the people. I mean, we can go anywhere in the world, and if we're traveling with people that are great, it really can make or break a trip. So we have expedition team members that go on every excursion. So I loved being with them on my Greenland trip. One's at the front of the hiking pack, one's at the back. Or contemplative walk. What I loved about some of the contemplative walks, or we had a perimeter in Greenland, and our expedition team put some flags. So I love just going off on my own and sitting on a rock and just really having moments to myself, and then the expedition team can see you in a safe environment. So I really enjoy our expedition team. We have biologists and glaciologists and things like that. But we are based on small ships. So how to get to these regions, which I'm sure Sheila has spoken to you about, they are ship-based programs because they're such remote locations of the planet. Some of the land-based programs are great, but it does limit yourself of where you can see in Greenland and where you can go. So being on the comfort of the vessel is enabling you to relax and enjoy a spa and great food on board. And then if a day you really want to go out and do a helicopter excursion, or do a contemplative walk, or jump in the Zodiacs, you can do that as well. So that's what I love about the ship-based programs, is because you can do as much as you want or as little as you want.
Cara, just mentioned Nan messaged that she did the kayaking, hiking, and camping in Antarctic too. So we got a
and the camping as well. Oh my gosh, and hiking. That's so great. And if you like hiking, Nan, Greenland is definitely the place as well to hike and explore the Arctic. That's great that you
We
did.
just had someone else join us, Steve, and Steve is interested in doing, oh my goodness, sorry. Steve, I'm going blank on the trip you want to do. The Northwest Passage, right?
Oh,
Northwest
fabulous.
Passage, yeah.
Yeah, Northwest Passage. There you go.
Oh, well, that's great. Hi, Steve. Thanks for joining us. This is great. What's exciting about our Northwest Passage trips is this is the vessel that we use now, because she can be positioned in Resolute. And instead of doing 23 and 27-day Northwest Passage trips, we fly up to Resolute and we can really hone in because she has a 1A ice rating on a P6, very high ice rating that we can maneuver in these areas. And so she is the exciting vessel that we have for the Northwest Passage trip. So we have trips that are an Arctic Express trip in Canada, so only 9 nights. But then we also have a 13-night trip and then a 17-night trip. So the Northwest Passage trips we're able to do it in a shorter amount of time now with her because of her ice rating and then the helicopters. So we can go further and farther with the helicopters in the Northwest Passage, which is exciting.
Where do they generally terminate?
In Resolute.
Oh,
Yeah, we start and then for our best of the Canadian high Arctic trips that are a bit longer, that include West Greenland as well, we go in and out of Kangerlussuaq in Greenland. So yeah, great questions. And there's so many neat opportunities because the helicopters are included. So your heli excursions are included, flight sightseeing. And this ship's 199 passengers, and we can get everyone off the ship even faster now because we have 4 disembarkation points. So 2 on the stern, 1 on port side, and 1 on starboard on the ship. So she's a great game-changing ship.
yeah.
So she'll have
Thank
2
you.
helicopter pads. Yeah.
Where do we sign up, Sheila?
I'll give you a call after this.
Okay.
Oh, this is great. I love it.
Glad you
And
could
so
join
there's-
us. We just had a couple of people join. Steve and Robert, welcome. Cara's given a general overview of Quark, touching on Greenland specifically, but we can circle back if people have questions about a particular itinerary or about Quark in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I love how there are some Antarctic travelers as well. So it's great there's so many places to see in the polar regions. But yeah, the Northwest Passage is definitely a good hotspot too. But on our new ship, Robert, too, what I was saying is it's a new game-changing vessel because this is specifically built just for polar travel. But a lot of our expedition ships are wonderful, but really tried and true expedition vessels in terms of basic accommodations and things like that. So with this new ship, the Ultramarine, I still love ships like the Ocean Adventurer, but it's neat if someone wants a little bit level of comfort. We do have balcony suites and things like that on this vessel too. But I personally even love the solo outside cabins. Every cabin is outside because I feel like a lot of people who do these trips aren't necessarily cruisers either. Like you can be a cruiser and enjoy cruising, but a lot of people really just enjoy being in these environments, in these areas, and the ship is the platform that we need to maneuver in these areas. So there's lots of different cabin types on this ship too. So a little something for everyone. And one thing that I don't talk about enough, so there's like the spa-inspired bathrooms on this new ship, yoga, so lots of wellness on board and a gym and a spa. But I don't talk enough about our dining, our food, because people think expedition, oh, it's, what am I going to eat? And so there's not only educational programs throughout our trip. That's how I found out that the musk oxen was related to the sheep, because in one of our daily recap sessions, the marine biologist told me that. So there's not only a great off-ship experience, but our onboard experience is wonderful. Like beer and wine's now included with dinner. Meals are fantastic sit-down dinners and lunches and breakfasts. So the food is incredible on board too. So even though it's an expedition, I find sometimes going out and being in the fresh air, the average temperature when I went to Greenland was about 7 degrees Celsius, but it still was enough to kind of build up my appetite and come back and have a really nice hearty meal before going out for another excursion or simply winding down for the evening and listening to a bar talk from one of our expedition team members. So great food on board, a wonderful onboard experience as well.
Okay.
And for those of you who don't know, booking through Sheila, you do get a $250 per person onboard credit. So each person gets that. You can use it in the Polar Boutique, or you can use it in the spa, or in the bar after dinner when you're listening to a bar talk or what have you. So there are, that's a great added value booking with Sheila for Quark that you wouldn't get any other way. So with Sheila being a preferred partner of ours,
Okay.
that has been a good thing. So are there any questions?
I just want to mention, that picture of the food is just incredible. It's not like your typical, what people would expect on an expedition cruise, right?
That's exactly it. I mean, I think when people hear expedition, there's so many preconceived notions. It's like, will I be sleeping in rough accommodations? Will I have a comfortable bed? And the food's a part of that. I think people think if they're on an expedition, the food might not be up to par, or maybe I'm eating hot dogs and sandwiches, which of course there's onboard barbecue sometimes on the deck where we do have a great like pulled pork and things like that. But the cuisine on our ships is wonderful. It's delightful. I love being able to choose from certain options too. Like one night, I had the chicken, one night I had the fish, but there's also vegetarian and vegan options and gluten-free options too. So the food is remarkable.
Question.
I raised my hand a while back, but I don't know whether you're looking at that. So
Oh, let's see.
it's okay. Anyway, can I ask now?
Oh, here.
Go ahead.
I think Sheila knows, like I've had it in the back of my mind for a while that I want to go to Iceland sometime, because I've never been. Most of my trips the past 4 years, I'm a big downhill skier. So I love winter, snow, ice. But have you been to Iceland? And what is the difference between Iceland and Greenland? And if you were going, would it be best to, I presume Quark also goes to Iceland. Is it better to combine the two? What's the difference? What would be the difference in the experience?
Great question. What I would recommend is doing like a 10-day Greenland trip and then getting Sheila to book a land-based program for you for Iceland. That's what I really recommend. Iceland is so, in my personal opinion, it's really inundated with tourism right now. It's very busy. So I feel like Greenland is going to be the up and coming Iceland because it's this little kept secret. The scenery and the wildlife is very different in Greenland than Iceland. The terrain. Iceland, there are some, caves and volcanoes that you can explore, which is very different than a Greenland experience. But those types of activities are great. Getting, maybe even renting a car or doing a small little guided group in Iceland, because I just feel with Iceland, the people are so amazing and the food's amazing that I really think Iceland is great on its own before or after a Greenland trip, is my personal preference.
And it's a size too, right? Like you were saying, West versus East Greenland is totally different. But with Iceland, you can easily do a circumnavigation on the same trip.
Do you think Greenland then is better by ship than by land?
Yeah, I do, because you can get into little nooks and crannies and areas of Greenland that you can't get to by foot or by vehicle. So it's a great opportunity to be able to go to some of the most remote places on the planet with the vessel. And then having your excursions, you really have moments of intimacy, because our group, some of them are as little as 10 people or 8 people in a group. So when you're exploring Greenland, you still have that intimacy as if you were doing it by foot. But the ship enables us to get into areas that you can't any other way.
Okay, and I won't ask you to answer this now, but
No, it's great.
I don't know if other people have this question, but it's related to the pandemic going on.
Yeah.
So maybe we can get to that later, but I'll let other people ask the question. But of course, there is a pandemic and ship related question.
Okay, no, that's great. Well, there's some other great questions too before we get to that, because I think that is important to bring
Yeah,
up for
that's why
sure.
I said leave it
I
to
love
the
it.
end.
No, I think that's really, I think that's great, because I think you also had a great Falklands and South Georgia only. That was Nan too, right? That's a great question. So we have had 2 seasons. As I said before, I've been here for 12 years, and we've had 2 trips to only doing Falklands and South Georgia. And unfortunately, we have not done it for coming up on 2 years. The reason is a lot of people go to Antarctica, and then some people want to do South Georgia while they're there already. But only the Falklands and South Georgia trips, they're just not popular on their own. So that's why we haven't. I think it's a great idea because, you know, I went to Antarctica, and then people have to come back and do Falklands, South Georgia, and then Antarctica as well. So it is a great question. Currently, we don't have any plans to reintroduce that itinerary, but they typically were 16 days. Those itineraries that we had. So people thought, well, why don't I just pay a little bit more, go for an extra couple of nights. So it would be 18 nights and go to Antarctica again and just have a different Antarctic experience. But that was a great question.
I think
Well,
Steve had a question.
Would you expect to see the Northern Lights on the Northwest Passage time schedules that you're on?
It is very possible. So as soon as about end of August, when the sun really starts to set a lot later in the evening, it is a possibility. Yes, it's a possibility. The best chances are the end of August on more of the Greenland portion of the itinerary. But it's absolutely a possibility, yes. Yeah, great question.
I'm not
What
seeing,
else is said? Yeah. Okay, and yes, Sheila, sorry, go ahead.
no, I'm not seeing questions in the chat, so I think Nan sent it directly to you, but if anybody else has a question, please go ahead.
Are you still able to have control, Sheila, or do you want me to stop sharing my screen, or how are you?
Oh, no, we
You're
can we can go back to the faces. Are you done with the slides?
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
you can stop and we can go back to faces if people have questions.
Okay, marvelous.
So I guess, you know, you guys focus on polar as you mentioned. You have what, over 25 years experience in polar?
Exactly, over 25 years experience. We were the first company to take passengers to the North Pole in 1991, which is still a trip we do today. So we have 2 trips a year. And then we were the first company to actually fully circumnavigate Antarctica with passengers as well. So we only do polar. Our focus is only on the Arctic, Antarctic. We don't go anywhere else in the world. So we're real specialists in these regions.
Maybe now is a good time to just address the cleanliness issue. I know that all my cruise partners, my Virtuoso partners like you guys, have always taken cleanliness very seriously. But now, of course, with the pandemic, everything's been kicked up a gear. Do you have a moment to just share some of the stuff that Quark has underway?
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest thing too with all of this is I want everyone to realize too, we were in Antarctica when this pandemic really started to expand and very rapidly. So we have 7 ships in our fleet, and 3 of which were in the midst of traveling during March. So we had no cases on board, but what we were even doing at the end of January is we were already taking temperatures of people as they were embarking. We have 2 doctors on board. So people would, you know, if they weren't feeling well or what have you, our doctor right away, our doctor's on board. We're checking in on passengers, seeing if it was just sickness from seasickness or something else. And so right off out of the gates, we were definitely making sure people were washing their hands, using the sanitizer, going to the dining room. And like any small vessel and expedition travel, even when it wasn't a pandemic such as this, we're cleanliness is so important on the ship, because even the common cold can spread so quickly, as we all know from being on some of these, on some small vessels and airplanes. Things can spread. A common cough could spread. So even before that, we've always been very conscious on cleaning our crew, our ship crew, our expedition team, even being very careful when they're dealing with passengers, washing their hands, because there's a, getting in and out of the Zodiacs, there's a lot of touching involved and grabbing people's hands and getting in and out. And you're sitting quite close to people in the Zodiacs. So it is a very big thing. So what we've done is we've created a whole task force, if things like buffets won't be available any longer. Sometimes we'd have a lunch buffet just to get to the next landing, to be able to get out off the ship faster. Sometimes buffets are a very quick way of getting everyone off the ship again, because the focus is a lot of the off-ship experience. So things like buffets, we won't be having. And still, right now, what we're deciding is, do we operate at 70% capacity or 50% capacity going to this Antarctic season? So there are still some things that are unknown right now with us going into the upcoming Antarctic season.
Yeah, and you
So
guys
it's definitely
have
something to talk about.
Cruise with confidence, or whatever the wording is for your thing. If people, every cruise company has some ability, giving people confidence that if they cruise and things change, they can generally move their money to another sailing.
Absolutely, yes. That's a great point, Sheila, is even if someone has a deposit, or if they've paid in full and they're really feeling ambivalent to travel, we can absolutely have a lifetime guarantee credit on that. So some people aren't comfortable even traveling in Arctic 2021, for instance. If in that case, we have our Arctic 2022 season coming out, so people are just choosing that. Or what's happening right now is people's trips are getting backed up. So if they had a particular trip that got rescheduled for 2021 April, maybe an Australian trip, people are now looking to switch their polar trips to the following year, because one of their other trips may not have gone. So absolutely, there's future travel credits. And we're doing with low deposits as well. So we'll start be doing low deposits of 10% for that reason as well.
I think Joan had a question.
Yes, so do you have travel insurance? Is that included with the plan?
Yeah, so $500,000 of medical evacuation insurance is included. So in the event something happened, we were able to get that person off the ship into the nearest hospital facility, and we're able to take care of them until that point. All doctor's visits on board are included with the trip as well. So for instance, I had a traveler bump their chin and needed a couple of stitches, and so our doctor, the doctor visit was included. And so what I do highly recommend is chatting with Sheila about purchasing additional medical insurance. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm dual. I'm American and Canadian. Can I purchase COVID-19 insurance when I book this trip?
Well, as we just mentioned, the Cruise with Confidence allows you to move the deposits, and even Cara was saying, if you've paid in full, right? Lifetime guarantee, which is an incredible program. As for insurance for COVID-19, that is something that is developing as we go. Manulife is the large provider of insurance for Canadians, and Allianz in the States. Everything is in a state of flux right now. So the rules are changing. On March 5th, Manulife said that COVID was a known event, and the only way you could get insurance that would cover that is if you purchased all-inclusive that had a cancel for any reason. But like any major event that has happened in the world, whether it's Ebola or SARS, AIDS, things will evolve.
So
That is the state of play.
What if you get COVID when we're on the trip?
That's where it's going to become very important to ensure that you have insurance that covers you. So whether
I don't think anybody does.
It's certainly an issue right now. It's not something that's unique to Quark. But it's certainly something that if you have private insurance, to find out from your insurer. But I can tell you that we're having conversations with Manulife at leadership levels, as are any companies who are selling travel to clients. And certainly across Canada, it's something that's getting very seriously examined. So unfortunately, I don't have definitive answers for you right now. It is in a state of flux.
So you say Manulife is on top of this. So like I got to go to the States. And so if I went to Manulife, they'd be more inclined.
More inclined to sell you insurance?
COVID-19.
Well, with Manulife, it's all-inclusive plan and for cover cancel for any reason. However, as Cara was saying, with their, if something happens that you want to change your trip after you have a deposit, then they have that protection built in with them. But the
what if
medical insurance once you're traveling.
While you're traveling, you come down with it.
I hear you. It's one of these things that's evolving, and 8 weeks ago, I had a very different answer for you than I had 4 weeks ago than I have today. Kathleen, did you have a?
It's a different question. I'm interested in more details on the wildlife that we could expect to see in Greenland. You showed a picture of the musk oxen.
Yeah. And the Arctic foxes.
Yeah,
Arctic hare too in Greenland. Arctic hare. Lots of different whales as well. The bow-headed whale, some belugas as well. So whales are popular in the fjords especially. Also polar bears. I don't talk about it a lot because I personally didn't see them on my trip. But on the trip that happened, the same trip that I had, but the year after, they saw 11 polar bears in Greenland.
Okay.
So it is possible to see polar bears there too, which is fun. And you're always on polar bear lookout because anywhere in the Arctic you can see potentially see a polar bear. So our team definitely is on the lookout for them.
And do you still give those yellow parkas when you?
Yes, yeah, the yellow parkas are included. And then boots are on loan for the duration of the trip too still. So the muck boots.
Oh, there you go.
So,
show it off there.
Yeah.
Yes, I had to give mine away, unfortunately, but
Oh.
very good.
I got mine.
Yeah, no, great questions. And lots of birds too. I mean, I just finally started getting into birds.
And here's my little one.
Oh, beautiful.
Very
That
nice.
is so beautiful. I love it.
I must say, when I travel with the Quark Expeditions, I was very impressed by the level of cleanliness that was expected of the passengers when we were disembarking and coming back to the ship, so that we wouldn't pollute anything in Antarctica. I had signed up to go camping twice, and unfortunately it didn't happen because of the weather. But we were told we were not to leave anything, not even a Kleenex or piece of gum, anything. It was, you take it very, very seriously. The environment there. I was very impressed.
That's great, Kathleen. Thanks for sharing that.
In terms of your 2020 season, you guys are canceled up until July?
Yes. So our Arctic 2020 has been suspended until October. So
Okay.
all through until the beginning of October. Yeah.
And anything, of course, Canadian ports now have been closed till the end of October, which kind of even kills the northeastern states, Canada, US, the leaves cruises that people would do. So
yeah. And the thing is too, is that voyages like this, people like to, especially with the Northwest Passage trip or Greenland trip, people like to prepare so far in advance anyway. So, usually people who are looking at trips now aren't traveling until next September or August anyway, for these types of trips. So I feel like people take longer to plan and conceptualize and pick a trip because it's fun even to pick what itinerary because there's so many to choose from. So.
And we were having a conversation before this call. I have some clients already going to Antarctica in 2022.
Yes,
So,
February 2022.
22, doing crossing the Southern Circle. So I'm going to have further conversations with Cara about putting a group together. So if anybody's interested in sailing with us, and you're friendly for solo travelers too, right?
Absolutely. That's what's, especially with the Ultramarine and some of our other ships like the Ocean Diamond, which is what you're looking at. There's designated single solo cabins. So if you don't want to share with anyone or you can't find anyone to go with, there's always like-minded individuals and travelers. So we actually have solo cabins with solo cabin pricing because some people can't find anyone to go with or want to go by themselves. So yes, great point. So some of our ships have designated single cabins.
Yeah.
Nie ci to do zimna?
No, nie jest ciepło, no.
Masz kocyk?
Nie, zaraz
I did
wychodzę.
a share on my Arctic one, made it a lot cheaper.
Yeah, see, yeah. And with the Ultramarine, the solo cabins too are really beautiful. Like I think in the past, some people have commented too on, I'm a solo traveler, but the cabins aren't that great and they're quite small. So we've taken a lot of that feedback too. So the Ultramarine, the solo cabins are quite spacious.
Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for the time. Does anyone have any last minute questions before we close it off there? Well, I did try to do a recording of this, so I will try to convert it and send it to anyone who signed up. I'll make it a private link on YouTube, so you need the link. My question above, I missed your question, Karen.
Oh yes, our deposits refundable. They are refundable in the form of credits. So currently, for instance, deposits are 10% now. If you book through Sheila going forward, in the time being, they're 10%. So for instance, you know, some trips around $10,000 would be $1,000. So they're non-refundable, but the idea here is we want to see you go to the polar regions. I mean, generally people who are booking these trips, they want to go at some point and they want to make it happen, and we want to make it happen for them. So currently there's no refunds on deposits and cash, but people are either rebooking another trip or keeping that as a credit. Or some people, I have this one family, this couple ended up putting it into their niece's and nephew's name. They switched their deposit. They ended up couldn't go, and they decided, why, I don't want to book in 2023. Let's just, and they passed it along and gifted it to a niece and a nephew, which was lovely. So the deposits can always be put in someone else's name as well.
Hey, I got a question for you. First time traveler with Quark, where do they tend to go with you first?
Generally speaking, people go to Antarctica first because it's generally their 7th continent, or they want to see the penguins and go to the bottom of the world. But with that being said, with us being in Canada, a lot of people, just the proximity of getting to the Arctic is so much closer. So I find that a lot of Canadian travelers pick the Arctic first because you literally can have your breakfast in Ottawa or Toronto and then go up and have your dinner or lunch in the Arctic. So for proximity purposes, instead of the 14-hour flights to get all the way down to the bottom of South America for Antarctica, I feel that a lot of people do pick the Arctic first.
Wow.
Spitsbergen
Okay.
or Greenland, yep.
And your Northwest Passage, it is a longer trip, right? It tends to be.
We have quite a few exciting Northwest Passage trips. So we have a Northwest Passage trip that's 17 days. And we have one that's 12 days, because now with the Ultramarine being able to position itself and not need to refuel, we can have shorter trips because it can stay up there for 60 days for to stay without refueling. So that's a really exciting new feature about the Ultramarine.
But it's going to places up, it goes to Pond Inlet? Does your...
Absolutely, Pond Inlet, Arctic Bay. We even have expedition team members like Akeisha Johnson, which has spent winters with our Indigenous communities up in the Arctic in those areas, so that when we go into these communities on our Northwest Passage trips, the local guides are coming on board and also going off the ship with all of us. to share with their communities. So we're really engaged with a lot of those communities in our Canadian high Arctic, which is very exciting. I'm very proud of that.
And Karen has asked, do trips cost less if you book further ahead?
Generally speaking, yes. So we have got early booking bonuses. So currently for Arctic 2021, for instance, there's 15 and 20% off as an early booking bonus. And then on top of that, other promotions. So yes, it's the further out you book, the better chance you're getting the cabin that you'd like and the departure that you want as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. This was fantastic. Thank you everybody for joining us. We dreamed today, we will travel tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow is not too far down the road. And I thank you, Cara, for helping us keep dreaming.
Thank you so much, everyone. It was so nice to meet with you and be in your virtual presence. This has been fantastic. And I love sharing some of my polar stories. So reach out to Sheila anytime if you have any other questions, and I can always hop on a call if there's any last minute questions that you have or think of. So thanks for being with me today.
That's
Thank
awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks very much.
Bye,
Cara,
everyone.
Sheila. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Be well.
Bye. Take
Care.
care.